own space. Right now, as it looks, there's 3 of them over there on the A side. And you know what? It completely invalidates what I was going to say, which is I really hope if they bring a breach, they actually use his utility like to the best, like, you know, to the best that they can, because that was an issue that I had with the way that Radsky was playing on Lotus. Doesn't matter. They're not bringing a breach. It's completely irrelevant. And I want to know what Apex's reaction was to seeing this comp come out as well, because this is almost certainly not what they were expecting.
Yeah, Hookah's a team which are often fun in games. This maybe not so much, and Mies, who finally gets a kill. It's an opening kill for Hookah's as well, which they can use here. Like you mentioned, not having a breach on Haven is a really interesting one. Having the chamber, not a meta which we've seen for ages. It was featured in a composition that Focus brought out on Split, which was able to shut down Apeks in one of the few maps that they've lost. And right now, it's just going to be that C hit. Trades coming back and forth. The chamber yet to feature. Part of the conga line, which is making its way out of spawn. A couple more kills in sight mean that there are no numbers here really for Apeks to work with. And Enzo walks out of the scenario, in fact, in a 1 versus 2.
Cutting his way over to the A site. Plenty of time to get that done. And yeah, I think these 2 players on Hookahs have figured that one out. So they're going to start their rotate over. They don't know for sure if he hasn't come through B or garage or whatever, but now they're going to know. There's that spike planted. Audio cue. 1 versus 2.
Yeah, Enzo's one of those players we highlighted in clutch situations before. Had a great map on Lotus. Can he carry his form in here to find Apeks? Their 3rd pistol round of the series would put them front in those statistics. Goes out and finds the first. Nice isolated duel, and it comes on to Vac. Can he deliver from the Headhunter as the chamber would be expected to do so? It's going to be the classic instead, and he bursts him down. Not happening this time around, and 13 rounds later, Hookahs get on the board.
Personally, I think it's beautiful art that Chamber was the one to win the first round on this map.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, this series has just been a wild ride so far, and that's just the best way to start it. Definitely won't be regretting bringing him along, at least not just yet. But there's still a way to go. And I think, obviously, for Hookahs, like, getting that first round in is immensely important. They had such a tough time on Lotus. Yeah. So just to, like, bring some of that confidence back up, kind of let loose a little after that, you know, that last game, I suspect if they had lost the first round, it would have felt a lot worse.
Let alone defender-sided pistol. I think this is really the win condition for their success. They want, like, an 8-4 half or something. With these double smokes, with Vac playing on the chamber as well, your offensive outlets aren't going to be the best when this one does swap over. And we already spoke about, you know, how does the macro game look. So many factors at play. The fact they're not running a Sentinel means that you've got to be a bit more diligent, or they are running a Sentinel, I should say. But,
well, chamber doesn't count.
Vac isn't going to be watching the backline more than Chihuahua, I anticipate.
I almost want to say I feel bad for Chihuahua because, you know, I feel like this is the year that those traditional Sentinel players kind of finally got their, you know, their space back, their agents back, and now forced back into 2022 times.
And this comp is a wild ride, and Magnum takes Akimbo on that. One of the few weapons that they've brought in, the Stinger, and it's traded out. Well, it's not traded anything out, in fact. There was no initial pick for Hookahs, a very passive default that they played. In fact, the retake setup is for A with that toxic screen. So Apeks can bring this to post with numbers. They've got weapons that'll do good damage up close. The shorty for Kiko, Mystic on a Frenzy as well, Magnum with a Stinger. This could be dangerous.
I see them like holding their post-plant positions actually really far forward because they know that they can't go and hide behind that toxic screen. I think Magnum's position here may be really problematic for Chihuahua. Now they could back off if they wanted to because they don't need to worry about the Viper Ward.
And what does Radsky do? He has to take this fight, but it doesn't matter. Enzo's winning him out. Body shots from him and it's sufficient. Apeks, flawless round with minimal investment. Just when we thought that Hookahs had given themselves a lease of life, it's a return to normalcy. Oh my goodness.
Very different to what we saw on Icebox. You know, go back to that first half on Icebox and Hookahs kind of coming in after their initial round win of the pistol, and they had really good weaponry, and they continued that on. They had a really good round 3 as well. And this is looking very different. I think part of it in that round comes down to the fact that Hookahs didn't read into the rotation that was being made by Apeks, and they were relying solely on the toxic screen to really facilitate them in their post plant. So, I mean, you know what? You move on. Time goes on. You know, Apeks don't need to really buy up here. They can just run the bonus because they know they're going against something very weak comparatively.
Yeah. The slower playstyle that you see from them here as well is significant because when you have two controllers, you're playing to delay. There are so many layers of utility to work with. Vac peeking in, finding one, but can't get within range of the rendezvous to hightail out of there. A awaits for Apeks, and they look to be moving in on it thick and fast. Hookahs want a quick retake, in fact. At least it seemed to be the case, but Radsky has the door shut in his face, and they'll have to wait a little longer before this spike gets planted.
Placing swarm grenade. Placing swarm grenade.
I know he's going down, but Heaven's being taken. That's why you've got Enzo here. He's looking up, taking some damage. Mystic's going to be getting the first kill of the fight, but Radsky to return. There's the Marshall that we know and love from that last round. It's just going to keep on clicking.
Enzo finding more and even jumping inside the smoke to take an additional with the classic. Leading the server right now in terms of kills as he did in the previous. And this one's looking pretty good for Apeks already. They've managed to stabilize that economy, bring some rifles online. There is a difference between the two teams. Enzo has a Marshal and Vac an Operator, already starting to work on that tour de force. But you're seeing the setup here from Hookahs yet again. It is just stall as much as possible, put Vac in an advanced position, and see if he can disengage. Unfortunately, he couldn't in the previous.
Well, he didn't even use the TP in the last one. And
He's
so
too
it's
far
like,
away from it.
well, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's kind of the problem. That's why no one plays Chamber. Hunter's Fury very early coming out there from Enzo, but it is going to successfully hold back those players of Hookahs.
I think Apeks have read into this as well. The Viper player is anchoring more towards sort of mid and B with that toxic screen utility. So a fast C hit is going to be the chip in the armor in terms of what you're concerned with what Hookahs have. Now you've got a retake with this op in the hands of Vac. You don't have the same maneuverability as the Jet choice. And Shadow's just playing off the contact. Has a flash here to set up Kiko. The knife gets broken. It's forced a little early perhaps. And the team that we may be expected to stall things out are the ones being stalled out of their own site retake.
Again, Magnum could be a problem here. Oh, and he gets traded out, but, you know, at this point, I don't think there's all that much that Hookahs can really do other than back off.
Yeah, it's the Operator as well. You just want to keep it in the hands of Vac for as long as possible. He's not been able to turn a result there, setting up on A, and it's a really incisive move from Apeks to just spot those gaps and make the most of it. You even think back to the early rounds when Magnum walked in through Garage and was able to pick off a player that presented themselves in window. This is something which they've tested, and I wonder if there's an adaptation from Hookahs.
Well, I was going to say, I wonder if they're going to place Vac over towards C long. I'm curious to see where he is going to go, because, yeah, no, it looks like he's not going to stay in the B site. But just because, like what you said, with them sort of figuring out where that anchoring is and trying to take advantage of the C site as a direct result. And the thing is, with this chamber, what you want is him to be getting the opening picks. That's kind of the point, and he hasn't been doing that so far.
Or me already faked into some of this A pressure. Kiko taking the site with Mystic up top, and the trademark won't do very much to slow this down. Mystic, in fact, using an additional shrouded step to place himself at Gong. Wants to reposition, maybe even take some space A-Link. Unsupported in his efforts. He'll have to hit some nice shots, but in fact, the flashpoint comes in to assist. Nothing found just yet. A trade of those blinds will put them in a decent position, but Apeks here have got so much to work with. They can just drop now into this deeper lying post plant. You have a one-way setup. The only issue is it's behind the toxic screen. A flank from Chihuahua finally delivers value, but so many aspects that you have to be worried about here in the 4 versus 3. Continuing to press forward. Hookahs finally getting the kills, and they will wrap it up. Time bought. I think that there's enough for them to bring it over the line. Should be just about. It's very, very close.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad. I did get a little bit concerned actually about where Shadow was going. Shadow was trying to wrap around through garage and window to sort of curve back round into the B site, and I was like, oh man, Vak's gonna get shot from behind. But it turns out that both the kills that Vak got in that round were short-range op shots on that C-Link area. He got that kill onto Kiko, got it onto Shadow as well at the end, and that was just a lot nicer controlled there from Who. And I think it just feeds you with a little bit more confidence. Hopefully it'll feed them with a little bit more confidence. He has the tour de force now as well, but he keeps the op. So the point is they have this sniping Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they
sniping capability. You know, capability is a strong word.
Difference between Apeks and Hukars here as well is just that diligence to make sure you're doing the right interactions. The counterplay to the chamber, it's a counterplay, an open outplay from Mystic! The Sea Haven site, a place where he's done this before, and he'll do it again. 3 found, and that should be the round. Only Mishu remains in a 1v4, and can't even get a decent save out here because that operator is lost to the sands of time.
Oh, Mystic's standing straight on top of it. He knows exactly what he's taking. Oh, he's already picked it up, in fact. He knows what he's going for. Maybe Mishu can get an exit frag, but that's kind of about it. I mean, that was really, really nicely played by Mystic there, especially after Vat got the kill with the Headhunter, which meant he had to push forward very slightly from the very back of the site, and Mystic instantly knows that there's space that he can take that they're not going to be expecting. For me, what was the most impressive about it was the fact that he did the adjustment. So he got the kill onto Vat and immediately turned not quite 180 degrees, let's say like a solid 140 degrees, right? And then gets the second one, and just you have a very, very clean sweep from the back of that site, and there just wasn't enough time for Who to really react to that. But it was a very impressive play.
Yeah, it's unfortunate as well when Vak finds that first pick, and there's not really too much you can do because the trade is that instant. And it's a synergy which we saw pop up in previous rounds as well, where Mystic and Kiko are both covering a lot of this ground with the TP, with the Tailwind, and immediately pressuring Hukars at a high velocity, which they're just simply not prepared for. The setup that they have at the moment isn't really working out, and this then goes back to some of the compositional stuff that we were talking about earlier, when you consider the fact that you've got Radsky in there on the KO instead of the Breach, which means in terms of what that stalling actually looks like, you know, there are no stuns, the supportive flashes will be a lot more difficult to get value from, especially with Vak on this chamber as well. So that proactiveness really has been inhibited on this composition. They do just have to feed into Apex's slow, thought-out game plan, and when they do up the tempo, they just don't look prepared enough for it.
You know, the good thing that you can say with Who here is that they do have, I mean, virtually all 5 of their ultimates. I'm curious to see if they're going to be using that Viper's Pit on the C site just to close it off immediately and try and encourage Apeks to head over towards A. And they also have the Hunter's Fury, which would be really useful if Magnum decides to bring out the lockdown, but I don't know if Apeks are going to look to invest their ultimates into this round, just knowing that there's so much on the opposite round. I can't use that.
Really nice setup here from Hukars. You see the layers to it as well. The toxic screen a lot deeper this time around, assisting Chihuahua's position as it currently stands in garage, and putting a veil up from which Vak can work behind. Now it's been dropped, and he is just tucking into the corner in sewers. Enzo trying to clear it out, peeks in front of it, and finds Kiko behind it. Nicely worked, and that is their opener.
Great disengage as well, which is exactly what we've been looking for to come out from Vak, and it's sort of funneling Apeks now heading towards into the B site, but both, you know, links either side are still in the control of Who. That's why these smokes are being set up here, so this still may be kind of hard for them to push in.
Yeah, and I think they're got to be setting up for some kind of a, I was going to say a link control, because you look at the lockdown, it forces Hukars back. Mystic has taken space on the site itself. Mishu turns away, and I don't know if he spotted him. He might have. They're re-clearing it now, and we'll get taken out 1-for-1. All the while time being bought, the null command invested to try and bite back at this, but you know, no space taken, no positions gained. Hukars are just getting beaten down. Akimbo finds another, now a 2v2, but you've got Enzo with an op. His Marshal's found an upgrade, and it's having the same potency it did before. Finally shut out. Radsky with yet another swing back, but the time is just so low. And I don't think there's any chance that this one is going to go into the hands of Hookahs. Magnum walks away with it smugly, and Apeks find their 5th.
Ratsky did what he could. He used the null command to actually be able to push his way in through A-Link. And that suppression was pivotal in him being able to push as far forward as he even could. But at the end of the day, a null command isn't going to stop Enzo from holding onto an operator. And even though he moved further back, it was still there. I actually really, I admire the swing he took onto Enzo as well, because I didn't think he was going to survive it. But yeah, I mean, the fact that Mystic was even able to take that space in A, you know, it's again this lurking playstyle that's allowing them to retake control of areas that Who are assuming is free.
Got a nice start cover there on long as well. The default one, information denial. Hookahs with a wall of their own put up, smoke of their own in that essence. But right now, it's Vac towards top B, just trying to use the Headhunter, has the rendezvous. Ratsky with a flash prepared towards short. A re-clear here from Hookahs, both initiators. Could be really nice, because Apeks right now are just funneling through the long hit.
Magnum's not too far behind, so he's not doing that kind of mid-lurk that he's been doing a couple times. Turning up on the A site, there's the smoke up towards Heaven and the drone, and the dash in, but immediately shut down.
Nice from Mishu, but the Rolling Thunder's a little bit better. Finds 2 kills, which puts Apeks a player up coming out of the execute. It was a 4-1 split. Magnum was able to isolate the duel onto Radsky. Now Mystic just sits in the smoke with a shorty. A weapon that costs less than any of Hookah's current arsenal, despite the fact this is a full buy. And looking at Mishu's HP, that is more than enough to finish him off. I don't think they even favor themselves here. Mishu, perhaps with the Guardian, just wants to try and get any damage done, but is immediately pumped back the other way. And Akimbo on this pistol, just unable to find anything. Apeks up to 6 now.
This is a difficult one, and I think we're kind of seeing potentially like some of the issues that you run into when you're not bringing that traditional Sentinel. You know, you've invested a spot on your composition towards trying to have that foot forward on the opening picks. And it's worked a couple times. You know, it's not like Vac is playing poorly. He still has a positive KD. But just getting kills does not necessarily mean they're consequential and they're valuable kills. And it's about what you can do to shut down things early. And I don't think Who are shutting things down super early, because a lot of the really valuable decisions being made by Apeks are later on in the round.
What a beautiful play set up. Mystic finally traded. The kill feed pinstriped. Trades both ways, as a lot of these rounds have been. I mean, they've been close, in fairness. Hookahs are just struggling. And Vac trying to make his way back through, takes the rendezvous, begins to creep out of garage, supported by Enzo, or supported by Mishu, I should say. Enzo from long, the flank coming back around from Shadow. This plant is nice and open for the positioning. Enzo is on the op, so we'll just be holding an off angle. Unscopes as Shadow gets involved, and it's back to a 1v1. So much stall that Shadow can afford here. Has another flash and a stun to make it that much more difficult for Vac, who has got half. And in fact, it's just going to stick it the whole way through. Halves the deficit. Hookahs now with 3 to pick up and just re-engages. Loses out his life to Shadow. Not sure what kind of implication that could have. But still far from ideal, but they get on the board most importantly.
That's actually a little frustrating, that the death to Shadow, because he could have probably run to the end of C-Long to pick up the operator. Yeah. Which is what I thought he would do. But, you know, I guess not. Oh well, whatever. It's a
difficult one.
You also tour de force.
Yeah. You're seeing the playstyle here of the chamber be a lot different to what it would be if you had a Jet on defense as well, because it's very individualistic as Mystic hits a ridiculous individual shot onto Mishu. Another early engagement going their way. And when I speak of this playstyle, it's those early engagements. It's more difficult to support your chamber player getting into offensive positions than a Jet, because the tailwind is that much more universal. It doesn't have to be so distinct. It's fluid in the way that you can approach it. And that's not something they've enjoyed, as they've lost out on this one yet again.
Oh, got one vision onto him, but the flash is
Spike
not
down
gonna
A.
not gonna work in his favor.
It's situations like that. Magnum trying to find a kill back and does so. And in fact, just keeps the foot down. Kiko dashing in front, Vac forced to reposition, and they'll know exactly what this positioning is. Magnum dropping out of heaven picks it up. And now Chihuahua 1v4.
Spike
Dude, I feel like I blinked and Chihuahua's the only person left. What's he even gonna do here? I mean, he's got his
There's 2 nanos.
snake bite he could use, but for what? Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, a kill.
Yeah. He's found the first. There's a shock at his feet. That makes it 20 HP. 3 HP, no HP. 3 for Magnum. And that is it wrapped up. No more than 3 for Hookahs at this point in time. Apeks looking very good. And it's that situation again. In the mid-round, trying to put Vac in a more dangerous position, get him to take that fight on long with the flash through Radski. But it's more difficult to coordinate, I think. And we even see it there, you know, only trading out sort of 1 for 1 and then finding himself isolated on short.
One thing I also want to mention about Chihuahua is like he's been holding on to this Viper's Pit for a few rounds now, which means he hasn't been making progress towards another one. And that's something I was, you know, at some point you just got to kind of invest it and then start making progress towards the next, because like how many of these rounds that have gone past could they have benefited from a Viper's Pit?
Kiko walking in and walking out with 2 kills. Very easy for him on the C site. Vac probably getting spotted here, and in fact he does. Will be taken out by Magnum, who's been doing a brilliant job on this Sentinel role. Controlling and dictating certain areas of the map. While it's different on attack to defense, it is something that Hookahs have lacked, I think it's fair to say. And now coming into this retake, it's just going to be more of the same. A steamroll. Flawless from Apeks. 8 now found, and a significant advantage on the half, which maybe, when you look at what the composition dictates, would have been a little more difficult to get those numbers on, have already been picked up.
I mean, you were saying, you know, you would assume that who have been looking, they would have wanted an 8-4 half because they, you know, of the way that their composition is, you would assume it's a little more defensive sided, and actually it's looking like it's going the other way, potentially even to a 9-3. Apeks are going to be coming into this next round with, again, basically all of their ultimates as well. I'm not entirely confident that who are going to be able to shut this one down, and I wish I could say that I were.
Yeah. It's really difficult as a caster in these situations, I feel, as well, because you want those adaptations to be made, but, you know, there to be some kind of respite, but Apeks will not allow it. The flash for a moment allows Radski to escape, somehow not catching any damage in that situation. He looks to re-engage.
You should run.
Wants to know about this situation, if there are players there or not. Catches so much damage onto many players, but it's only enough for 1 kill.
I mean, Chihuahua coming around might be able to get something, but I think Apeks are kind of prepared for the fact that there could be somebody on the flank. Vac, you're really going to have to show up here as the chamber, but you know what? You're watching 2 different angles. There's the Rolling Thunder. You've got to get out of the way.
Oh.
Last player standing.
Has been hit by that tag there, and Enzo's even
really
found Chihuahua on the flank. A flick on the head, swivels 90 degrees and finds Apeks their 9th. 9-3, the scoreline coming out the half. I'm not even going to say it. It's looking unlikely right now. How this attack exactly works, I'm curious to see, because even the comments you were making about, you know, the ultimates that they held on to. When did we see a pit, for example? If you're introducing these agents into the comp, you want to have a couple ultimate rounds about you so that there's an option, an outlet of some kind. How exactly that pans out now that things have flipped, I continue to question.
I mean, you know, think of like your typical Haven attack. You know, you would imagine some kind of like either blast packing into a site or dashing into a site. Who's doing that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's Chamber meant to do? Just run?
Yeah. I think it's like more of the problems with being proactive defenders side that they struggled with, I think, because they've sort of invited the pressure. That's what the composition does. And in fact, Hiko can just take that jewel onto Chihuahua, move away. That's the toxic screen gone. It wasn't even placed, in fact, so not much of a thought into where they were going to be going just yet. Back finding 2 on the Headhunter. We're back to a level standing. Hookahs, they need this round if it's to look even somewhat doable.
How many smokes they got available? Oh, wait, they're dead.
Yeah, and they
So-
bought double controller.
It's kind of like, okay, getting those picks would be super great if you could then set the site up and hold those people back, but that's not an option, so they have to rotate out.
They're going to be heading into this B. Got both initiator players, Shadow and Enzo, creeping down sewer, and this could activate to a fairly fast flank if we do get the open plant. I would like to see Hookahs take some extra space, perhaps head towards A link as it looks like they might be. The spike not yet down, and all this time has been bought. Magnum has found himself on the front of the site before we've even got into that situation, and Apeks are ready to retake. Mishu dropping, pinged out onto Radsky's position, and the Frenzies will just spam away and claim themselves number 10.
I mean, you said it there, right? The fact they were so slow, it just gave so much time away for Apeks to be able to... I don't even want to say set themselves up like it was an elaborate process, because it absolutely wasn't. All they did was they just rotated round and they flanked up through mid, and they just did it while holding shift. And they had the time to do it while holding shift, because who were taking some time, and they knew they weren't going C unless they were, you know, throwing it up C long. That was kind of the only place that there was a tool free in any way. Like, Magnum was there, he could see what was going on. And who checked every single entrance into the B site? Didn't look behind them as soon as the dagger was thrown. Like, you know, all of these sorts of things, and it just... You give your opponent time.
Chihuahua has found an opener onto Shadow. This is another first pick which Hookahs have, but now I'm curious to see how this develops later in the round. You have a toxic screen set up outside of A, and Kiko is already pressing, looking for information, paired up with Enzo, and doing a little reconnaissance mission to give Apeks some kind of a foothold, at least in terms of positioning into this round. Because you look at Hookahs buy, it's not ideal. They're forced into it. Those Bulldogs could be dangerous if they can position themselves nicely. Oh, wow. See, even Enzo's found this spot behind the wall, and I doubt that they'll clear it. The flash comes through. Chihuahua's gone for it. Of course, the owner of the wall knows it best and will be picking that up. Kiko has also dropped. Those are the two rifles off the board. Now Hookahs just need to take this to post, and C looks to be the destination.
And at least they're, like, adding some pace to this, right? Like, yes, they have to check some of that space, but I think because of where they have VAC, they kind of know that mid is mostly safe. They're mostly okay. They can at least get to the C site.
Shoot. Doing his due diligence, making sure that everything's clear towards the back of it. Mystic, with this dark cover, looking to play around it yet again. Stray shots, but they find the mark. Now it's a 2 versus 3, and this is looking a little tiresome. Vac has found a flank, however, and this ping from Mishu will just slow the pace down a little bit further. Vac claims from his positioning gained, and now Magnum is in a 1 versus 2. Doesn't even clear behind him. Vac will do exactly that. The force buy pays off, and Hookahs take a 4th.
Still in the game. The force buy does pay off, but do they have the money to pay for new weapons? Yeah, they do. Okay, they're fine. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is it going to be a little expensive? No, it's not too bad. I mean, Apeks, on the other hand, they're going to have to kind of distribute their funds smartly, but they're also not super pressured about it. You know, like, sure, we'll take an eco. You go ahead. I mean, it's good at least to see who putting around onto the board, and I think the position of VAC really helped with that one. Kind of having him do, I suppose, in a sense, a kind of lurk.
Yeah. All about the positioning. We see Apeks go for this mid-aggression that you see a lot of the time a Jet player capable of doing, but with only a classic, you're not going to walk away with too much. Magnum has found a kill. Walking out into mid. Chihuahua trying to line up a few of his own. Will take a couple, but, you know, they don't want to lose too much here, Hookahs. Effectively, the next round will be your bonus in sort of open quotation marks. Shadow and Enzo have a chance to actually recollect some of that weaponry before they come through. I know at the very least there's a Bulldog available, and it is Shadow that's going to be holding on to that one.
Here.
Oh god, they're gonna meet in C main. Knife fight in C main, anyone?
Hookahs with a very deep passive post plant, you would call it, if you were looking to defend the site in a more orthodox way, but they walk into Apeks. Enzo finds one back. Paranoia just to slow things down. Hookahs want this on their own terms, and in fact, Mishu will win it on his. The Sova duel goes his way, and Hookahs find 5. They have half as many rounds, but they're looking to have twice as much of a chance on their attacking side as the defense has been so far. The gun round, however, will be the biggest test.
And that's at least something that they do have that, but I think the gun round's going to be harder, not just because it's gun rounds, but part of the reason that Apeks were overly aggressive in that round is because they were on an eco, right? So it's kind of like you just sort of push in and you look for a kill, and if you don't get it, then okay, cool, we haven't lost anything major. And so they're not going to be playing like that in this round. They will be a little more passive. Enzo is likely to use the Hunter's Fury because he's been pretty quick on using those every time he's had them. Although now I've said it, he's not going to do it because usually he uses them quite early in the round. I think once they figure out that they're in sewer, there's a chance that he could use it down here just because it's such a narrow area. Like, how do they escape it?
I mean, that's where the breach utility has so much value, and something that we didn't see, of course, from Hookahs as a result. You can pair it so nicely, usually through the link position, but we have Kiko holding down B, so it's not going to matter for Apeks. Hookahs having this toxic screen up. I mean, the Viper is going to be one of your conditioning tools in terms of creating that fake sense of presence on A, and they've done a decent job of it so far. Those 3 players that started off the round in that position will remain there. The only issue is Apeks are fully set up for a C retake. Both of those initiators are your A players. The Killjoy sort of util is for Garage, and the turret is simply for contact on a rotate.
Well, getting an untraded opening kill, not too bad, but you are right, that information's going to go straight over to Apeks. Chihuahua gets traded finally by Magnum, and Apeks can just start to push over towards the site.
Yeah, the big thing here for Hookahs in this post-plant's probably going to be the null command, or it could be Mishu and Radsky. They won't even pop the ults. In fact, it was Enzo with his out that ends up getting punished. Mystic 1v4 in Garage, and the most heavily guarded part of the map is the one that's been blown open as he tries to clamber back through it. Radsky now just walking into the sight lines. That's the first of what could be a couple of exit frags, but it looks like Mystic is denying the opportunity and makes his way through towards the attacking spawn.
I really like that use of the dark cover, actually, because now he's getting himself into a position where he actually could earn some money for himself.
Oh, Vac is holding it. That is so smart. All bases covered by the Lithuanian. He gets it done. And now Hookahs are up to 6. That is the gun round gone. The big round that we were focusing on. You saw the ult investment from Enzo to deny the plant. But the fact that they didn't have to expend that null command now coming into this round, I think is huge, because KO is one of the sort of differences between these two teams, and being able to suppress that utility for the retake setups, especially that we saw Apeks playing with, it could be massive.
Yeah, I'm curious if that's something they would use to try and, like, open up the site, maybe, especially if you want to get past the Killjoy util.
No way. No way, the
God,
Kiko. He's going to
so
updraft as well. And he's nearly found the kill!
No.
Running down C-Long on a classic to take the orb in the face of danger and nearly walk away with one. Now Apeks have seen, okay, it was just the Viper. We can move into this A and defend it with our lives. Enzo tries to do so, just barking away from them at the front door. Hookahs have cut noise. They know that they lack C-Long presence right now, and it's put into question, where do they want to try and finish? The posture still remains to be A, but work to be done in terms of map control.
But the question is also, where the hell is Kiko, right? Like, they don't know. They don't know where that is. Magnum potentially getting ready to put the lockdown down. You know, there isn't a Hunter's Fury on the other side, and they aren't running a breach. So there isn't really much that can be done about it. He's going to be holding on to it for now, though, I think, because they want to be sure that who are actually still here.
Here is the null command. It'll deny any kind of utility on the way through. Magnum doesn't need a lockdown, though. Just needs a stinger. In fact, that's the case for most of these Apeks players. Give them inferior weaponry, and they will turn a superior result. They've reigned supreme in the region for the majority of the time they've spent there. And Vac is just forced to turn away, and Kiko won't even let him. Lends him a knife. This time it's to the front lines. They were worried about him on the back lines. And Apeks find 11.
So Magnum's going to be happy with that one. He's like, oh, okay, I can hold on to my my lockdown a little longer. Didn't have to spend that one, and we still won the round out anyway. it was very patiently played there by Apeks. You know, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. They've not over-rotated too much either. When you look at these rounds, it's that macro game I was speaking about before, and exactly the same way that it panned out on Lotus. They've not been sold too much of a fake here by Hookahs, especially when you consider what the setup is, and they've lost half of it.
Oh my goodness, and again, that's kind of like that one opportunity to have someone that's holding on to the other side. Magnum swinging out. That one kill from Vac, he's not going to let him get away with that.
And, you know, you've got the alarm bot to contact the paranoia through. These are all set plays from Apeks, set reactions. And it's been done brilliantly. The fact that Chihuahua drops immediately leans away from, you know, the conditioning that I was speaking about. Hookah's not really engaging too much with faking off of this Viper's control. Hiko completely denying it. Now they're trying to move in towards A. Even with Magnum having the lockdown here, you've got to land the perfect fragment, or at least some shock darts as well. I'm sure if Radsky's going to be able to do it, we'll have to see if there's an adjustment as a result. Mishu just playing up close, trying to buy time. The fragment does come out, and I'm not too sure how from this position Mishu's able to do anything rather than just get kills, and he's denied that. It's not happening. Apeks find everything, and they're up to 12.
This is just so rough. And just playing off of that point you made about Chihuahua, you know, we're nearly at the end of this map and we've still not seen a Viper's Pit. And he has one. He has one. And you know, talking about how this is a composition that's maybe a little harder to engage with, I mean, with the initiators, you would think that, you know, you can set up a site. You got the controllers, you can set things up. But just because of that lack of duelist, it's a little harder to engage with. And having a Viper's Pit would be one way of actually, okay, if we can push people off of the site, we can actually hold this space. Maybe we can actually hold our own post plan. And so far, they haven't had any chance to do that.
You want to play? Let's play.
You think about it as well. One of the teams that had been running a Viper on this map when they were using double walls in the region was HSD as Mishu fires Kiko out the sky. And I mean, the use of the toxic screen for them there was denying a lot of the info that the Killjoy was buying in a passive sense with the turret. And even here, we've not seen too much of it. A decent start for Hookahs. But it's in this sort of mid to late round where they've struggled to build on early advantages they've been picking up.
Spike still left behind as they've gone for this default. Now, the entire middle of the map, you could argue it, well, it's not clear in the sense you have the Killjoy utility, but there's space to work with, you know, you can... In theory, you could shock dart it, you can get rid of some of that utility and take that, but it looks like they're posturing over towards the A side, interested what they could potentially get over there.
Even speaking of this pit you were talking about, I wouldn't have hated Chihuahua using it to just flood the site and create some more of that pressure, which they've been lacking. They look to be heading in here as 4 because Vac is nowhere near it. He's so far back, has to move in through sewers and will do eventually. Magnum already finding 3 kills inside the site. Mystic posted up with an op. It's a 2 versus 2. Finally, Vac arrives. And just as soon as he arrives on the scene, he will be leaving.